Welcome back, everybody, to Scale Success Reptile Podcast. We have episode 41 tonight, and tonight we have Mitch and Jon from Fathom Hogs. What's up, guys?
What's up? What's up?
I love this. You know, when I knew that you guys were going to be together, it was the perfect time to do this podcast because I can already feel the energy. You know, you guys are together, so it's a great one. You know, before we jump into the things, let's say hi to a handful of people that are here.
All right, cool.
You know, before we do that, let's shout out a couple sponsors and all that good stuff. So give me a quick second. So guys, US Arc Florida, make sure you guys check them out. Go get a membership. They are the spearhead when all the legislations are coming down in Florida. You know, make sure you guys go get a membership for that, as well as US Arc National. They are the same nonprofit, but in the national level here in the U.S. And you also need a membership for this as well. So you need 2 memberships of USARC to support them because they need every penny counts for their fight. Now we have our sponsorship, Sea Serpent Racks and Incubator. Big shout out to Chris for sponsoring the podcast. If you guys are looking for a PVC rack or PVC incubator, make sure to check him out. If you're local to Florida, he's here in Florida, so he can easily pick it up from him or see him at a local show. And he does ship nationwide as well. So you guys can get it all over the U.S. And like I said, newest sponsor of the channel, Blake's Exotic Feeders. Big shout out to Blake's Exotic Feeders. You guys also know him as Blake's Animal Ranch. And he's been providing quails for us. We've been using quails for the past 2 years directly from his ranch. He breeds them there. And then he ships them directly to your doorstep. Or you can pick up locally as well. And Husbandry Pro. If you guys are looking to take your record keeping, your husbandry records, all that stuff to the next level, make sure you use Clover60 for a 60-day free trial. You guys won't look back. So, you know, all those sponsorships, those companies that we're working with, everything that we use here in-house. Otherwise, we wouldn't. But really appreciate thank you for all their support and sponsoring us here.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and now let's get to the people that are here, ready to see and hear us talk tonight.
Hell yeah.
Bear, Red Onion Reptile.
Bear. What's up, Bear?
We got Ricardi Reptiles. What's up?
Hell yeah, Anthony's in the house. What up, Anthony?
Golf Reptile Creations. Casey, what's up?
Hey, Casey. Thanks for joining.
We got Josh
Fisher. What up, bro? I just hit the follow on you.
There we go. So we got
Dustin.
Oh, yeah, there he is.
That's our dog.
We got ACL Hog.
Albert. What up, Albert?
Mike.
Welcome, Mike. Thanks for tuning in.
Cat,
welcome.
Hogalicious.
I love her.
I like that. I think
she's awesome.
That's cool.
Yeah, she's got a cool thing going with her kids right now. Oh, Caveman. What's up, John? What's up?
Reps and Techs.
That's what's up, man. Thanks for joining.
Terrapin Station
Exotics, Brett. What's up, man?
We got TNA Snakes. Anthony, thanks for joining.
Anthony, thank you.
All right, we're gonna cut it off there, guys. Thank you again for everybody that's joining tonight. If you guys have any questions specifically for Jon and Mitch or myself, make sure to drop a super chat. Keep the comments coming in. Just keep the conversation up. Make sure you guys subscribe to the channel, hit the like button. So guys, you guys are together today. Jon, you're down here in Florida and stuff like that. This is, I think, a great part of your partnership, right? It's a friendship first. Right?
Yeah, correct.
Yeah. So give us a quick rundown on how this friendship and then evolved into a partnership.
Do you want to start?
Go ahead.
Well, I guess John Paul and I met, I believe it was 2013 on the Fauna Classifieds. He had some really forward animals available. They were the first Arctic het lavenders made available to the general public. And I definitely wanted that project back then. And I reached out to John Paul, made a deal with him. I purchased an animal from him. And then once we got on the phone, it was like instant, like chemistry. Like we knew after talking with each other, we weren't just into hog nose together. We were in the cannabis industry together. We did a lot of things very similar. We kind of realized like, hey, we're like the same person, just like 1,000 miles apart, you know? So our friendship, we kept talking and stuff. And I realized that John had a forward collection. I had a forward collection. And I proposed the idea to John and said, hey, man, why don't we come together and we could make even more cooler new stuff that nobody's really fathoming. And we could really kind of like come together and you know, make some cool stuff together, because he had the forward collection, I had the forward collection. And if we joined forces, I was like, we could really do some really cool stuff together. So we ended up writing down some names and coming up with some ideas. And we ended up saying, well, we'll meet first in person at, I think it was 2014 Daytona. And we ended up settling on the name Fathom Hogs, which John Paul didn't really like at first.
I hated it when Mitch first proposed that one. I was like, God, that sounds stupid. I don't know if I'm into that, you know. But you know, I was like, hey, let's just do it. Let's see where this evolves to, and you know, it's done great.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. No.
Yeah. So
I think the forward thinking about like the name, it really worked. You know, you guys are definitely, that Fathom Hog name is definitely a staple in the hognose community.
Oh, appreciate it.
Yep.
Yeah, sometimes we don't even realize it either. We're like, I don't understand what people are talking about. But
Yeah, you know, we still don't even understand the weight that we carry. You know, we're just two people that really enjoy our animals and enjoy making cool stuff to show the world. You know, we don't know what stuff's going to look like when we make it a lot of the times, and it's just very exciting for us to, and we appreciate. We're humbled. I mean, I can speak for myself here at least. I'm humbled by the trust and that people put into us.
Yeah,
and you
likewise.
know that they come to us for information. I try to tell people all the time, there's never a stupid question. And people are sometimes, you know, they come with, you know, please, we don't want to bother you. We don't want to take your time. But this is what we do.
Yeah.
And it's something that, you know, we're in a very special place that we're able to do what we love as a job. And it's just incredible. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, you know, and I think that makes a big difference when people can come to you and ask a simple question and not get berated by it, or you know, get, you know, told different things. Like you do see some other, you know, what, like Facebook will say one, or even on social media, any social media platform, somebody asks a simple question that maybe, you know, you guys haven't thought about that question, or because it's just, you know, your muscle memory is the same thing you do over and over again, years. And then for them, it's just starting out, you know, especially the breeding process of it. And you guys have together now, how many years of breeding experience you guys have accumulated?
Well, I first started keeping hognose snakes. I don't know if a lot of people know this. I started keeping Western hognose snakes in the mid-90s. So it's been, you know, it's been a long time. I didn't really breed them back then. I was just the husbandry aspect of it. But breeding Western hognose snakes now, probably at least the last 13 years.
Yeah, so I would say I got 12 years this year, because 2013 is when I started buying and trying to breed. I'm not even gonna lie to kick it. My first 2 years were trash. I slugged out miserably. I got a lot of poor advice from a lot of said breeders at that point in time. Luckily, a lot of them are no longer in the game to keep spreading misinformation and poor tactics and husbandry tips. So, Yeah, I would say 11 years. I mean, if you don't count the 2 years I was trying.
It's
So
part of the process,
11 and
man.
13, 20, 24 years combined of experience.
Yeah, it is part of the process, Alvaro, and that's one of the things I think a lot of people, they get discouraged.
Yeah.
I tell them, you're going to fall on your face, a lot of times, and I have a lot of people that reach out and they ask for my suggestions on things, and I warn them even then. I'm like, you're going to fall on your face, but don't get discouraged. It's going to happen. So
Yeah.
it's learn from my mistakes. I always tell that. I preach that to people. I just had somebody recently that reached out, and they have a 36-inch cage that they're doing for their single hognose snake that they have, and they are asking me about substrate questions, about making their cage bioactive. And I said, hey, that's not my boat. I'm more of a commercial type breeder, but I do keep some of my animals in some space like that. Like I keep my Gila monsters like that. I keep my turtles outside. I'm going in a very different direction with them as far as how we as keepers keep those type of animals. So it's I said, hey, I would love to collaborate with you on this. So it's somebody I'm currently working with on Instagram right now to just help that individual get to the next step, and we can learn together. Not only her as a novice, not even a breeder, just a keeper, but me as a breeder, working with her and being able to see where her successes are, so I can pass that information to the next person.
It's interesting. I just had a message a couple days ago, somebody asking if do I know anybody that keeps hognose outside in here in Florida. I said I don't know anybody personally, but here are the main factors you need to factor in. Temperature, and then escape proofing whatever you're gonna put it outside, especially because hognose are so small, and they'll dig right through anything. So that's interesting, where people are starting to evolve, even with the hognose, where they're trying to do bioactive, outdoor keeping, all that stuff. And like you said, us commercial style breeding and stuff like that, we're not putting our all of our time into that. So when these people come through, it's good to get that information, to get that fresh view on all that stuff.
Oh yeah, I tell a lot of people, it's the same, and in the industry, honestly, you have veterans in an industry that have learned a way, and it's hard to teach them something new because they've learned something, it's worked, or it's made them fail, and they no longer pursue that way. Well, where you have someone new that comes in that can actually take that step and jump into it, and they can teach us a lot of things that maybe we take for granted or we have our eyes closed to. And it could make everyone more successful at the end of the road. So
yeah. And people are getting these super chats. Reptiles sent strips. This is something new, I'm not saying new, but something that he started doing himself, but I've heard other people trying to do over the years as well. Making like scent strips, scented with toad or fish or something like that. It seems like there's a handful of people are saying that they got their hands on it and it's pretty successful. So this is another example of somebody that had an idea and ran with it, that's helping out the hognose community and stuff.
100%.
But next super chat needs to be above $5 to put him up, so you can get Reptiles scent strips out there.
No, that's cool, and that opens the avenue for other things as well. We're talking about hognose snakes here, but that helps with things like gray banded king snakes. You can even get into some of the different type of smaller island boas that specialize in lizards as well. He's opening a door. It is a concept. I want to say, do you remember who first made those scent strips? I know one individual that we used to breed sent them to us. I can't quite remember. I don't know, but
can't remember his name.
Yeah, there's been people that have done this before, but they did. It's with anything. There's always execution.
Correct.
You can have an idea, and but it's execution as far. And Reps and Techs, he's got a nice packaging. It looks good. It looks like a commercial product.
Yep.
and he's opening the door to be able to excel in other areas as well, not just hognose snakes. It could be a very valuable thing, and it's something that we use scenting here inside of both of our collections. Obviously, we have some different perspectives on some things with that, but that's hognose snakes. That's that's one of the reasons why we me personally, I got into them to begin with. They weren't just a corn snake. They weren't just a boa. They weren't just a ball python. Something that I've checked the box in as far as a herpetoculturist, as far as breeding. And it was that challenge to get there initially. That's one of the things I think that appeals to a lot of us with the hognose snakes, is it isn't something like that. It is a challenge. They're different to breed. They're different to get started as a neonates to get going. So it's just a fun thing. He's doing a great thing for the reptile community. That's for sure.
Yeah. Because with that being said, right? You guys use scenting in your collection. I've used it, but some people don't have the ability to really get toads or frogs or something like that to be able to scent. So if they have some kind of like dry good like that, it works out and is easy to keep for a casual keeper as well.
Yeah, they can just keep it refrigerated and wet it as they need it and use it, and or refreeze it or whatever.
Yeah, and I'm not familiar exactly what because he's listing 2 species on there. I know one of them I know is an anole, but it's not a Carolina, so it's not the green anole. So I assume it's the brown anole, which would be an introduced species. Awesome, staple to put into it to be able to use. But and then also some type of toad as well. But 2 staples when it comes to a lot of tricky feeders, not just hognose snakes. So it'd be interesting to see if anyone had any success moving forward with things like gray banded king snakes or some of the more secretive milk snakes to get them going. So yeah, like I said, he's doing a great thing.
Great product.
No, for sure. Let's get back to the topic of you guys and your success in the hognose community and stuff. With being so far apart, like you guys said, like you're all the way in Ohio, he's down here, Mitch, you're down here in South Florida. How does a partnership work in the manners of distance? Because I'm pretty sure there's multiple people that have thought about, hey, if I partnership up with somebody, then my collection doubles, my breeding power doubles and stuff like that. And I'm pretty sure that's what you guys had in mind when this started, right?
So initially when we started, John would have certain projects at his house. I would have certain projects at my house. We would shoot to create the visuals, then swap, so that both of us basically could work in opposite directions and cover bases, or do the same pairings but different result. Like for example, like John Paul does a double het storm cloud to a double het storm cloud. I do double het Conda storm cloud to double het Conda storm cloud, and I might get some Conda sables that are possible het for storm cloud, or some Conda storm clouds where he gets regular storm clouds, and then we swap, so that we could have diverse blood, so that when we do breed things back together, they're not related. Also, we used to send males and back and forth too, but now we've gotten to the point where the only thing we really help each other with now is things that each other don't have, as far as moving projects forward, because over time, one person will outproduce the other, one person might do a little more than the other. And not that this happened between John and I, but that might cause resentment between others. So John and I kind of have separate collections now, where John produces what John produces at his house, I produce what I produce at my house, and then we come together at the shows and sell together, and we act as one entity. But it's kind of evolved over time. Like we were more involved in each other's collections in the beginning when we were building a lot of this stuff and gaining a lot of these new morphs and things, and making sure each other had counterparts and stuff. Now we do diversity. So like John will do the same breeding, I'll do the same breeding. That way we can offer the customer 2 separate bloodlines, or, you know, so that people aren't inbreeding and, you know, crashing their collections, and they can produce great stuff that's totally healthy, that they can be proud to sell and that they can be proud of as well. So
yeah, and one of the things, you know, I want to go on a tangent there. We're talking about our successes here and what we've done. One of the things that, you know, you got to focus on when you have in this partnership, and that we've learned about each other as this business has evolved, is you have to have respect for each other. I think that's a real thing. Not just, you know, like, hey, that's my homie over here. That's it. You know, we're just breeding snakes together. You've got to understand, you know, what the needs are for the business, and having, you know, an uncanny respect for each other. We have not agreed on everything.
oh no,
We haven't. You know, there's been times, you know, throughout this partnership where, you know, he's thought one thing, I've thought another thing, but we come together as a business, and we make a decision that's best for the business, instead of what any person, you know, takes personally. We try to remove the personal aspect out of it, but it's made our friendship grow stronger as well. You know, we've evolved as people, you know, not just you know, snake breeders or anything like that. And I think it's helped us immensely.
Yeah.
So,
you know,
yeah.
and going to like having different points of views, different likes and dislikes. We have a question from Ricardi Reptiles, and it's, what are your guys' favorite morph? Same or different?
Permafrost.
I mean, you know, to me, I love Super Arctics. It's just my thing.
Okay.
I love Super Arctics. I mean, I love where it's at now, to where it's an affordable animal for anyone to get their hands on if you really want to just keep one as a pet. They come in a wide variety of colors. You know, initially a lot of people thought that they were just black and white animals. You know, now you've got lots of different saturations of colors that are coming in. You introduce Conda to it. Super Conda. I'm not a fan of Super Conda myself. You know, I tell people that all the time. I love pattern on animals, but Super Conda and Super Arctic makes, you know, brilliantly striped animals with that hypersaturation of pigment coming down the dorsal, and that's my thing. I love Super Arctics. If I was looking towards a recessive mutation, single recessive will probably always be Sable. I love the dark. I love dark. You know, I still think Swiss Chocolate is a beautiful animal. It came after, you know, Sable. So, you know, Sable being the first hyper melanin pigmented animals. You know, it's done some wonderful things. I think, you know, it'll always, you know, shadow Swiss Chocolate, as I would say, because you can kind of anticipate what things are going to look like. But you know, those are my 2 favorites. So recessive, probably Sable, incomplete. My favorite all around color mutation is Super Arctics. So
mine's different. I'm permafrost. Permafrost line everything. Everything permafrost, baby.
I did make that Super Arctic permafrost female this last year, and that's amazing animal. It's something really that we are proud of. So,
you know, in the permafrost project, right? It's one of those animals that you need to see in person. Over pictures, it is impressive, but in person, it definitely changes your view on what the actual animal looks like, and what the production of that animal is. You know, and then the Super Arctic as well. That's one animal that, especially like you said, the pricing is perfect, where anybody walks by your table at a show and they stop and look like, what is that, right? I want the animal right there and then. So both great. And then Super Arctic, you know, permafrost put together.
Yeah, even better.
Even better, yeah. That's right. Yeah. So now, likes. Any dislikes of a single morph, you know, a combo, anything like that?
Dislikes.
I like snakes.
Yeah,
that's a tough one. Yeah, okay. So I mentioned it already. Super Conda. Not a
Mhm.
fan. You know, I like pattern on my animals, and that with the just the reduction of everything minus the head pattern. You know, it's just not my thing. I do make them as a byproduct every year. Do I have them as breeders? Yes, because the genetic power that they bring to the table for a lot of these color mutations. Um, One thing that surprised me this year, I made some some super conda Arctic storm clouds. Really like those. Really like the palette that comes with those, but just standard super condas, not my thing.
Yeah. You know, and I agree in that sense. I like Conda more because it adds more contrast to the animal. Super Condas are cool. Like I think the one of the best looking Super Condas is an Xanthic Super Conda, just because it's nice
Yeah,
and clean. But then once you want to add more actual coloration to it, you need the Conda at least, or
Yeah.
or just a non-Conda so you can have the variation of the pattern and stuff.
yep,
But I
I
agree.
agree. I agree. Hey, what's your so tables are turned here, Alvaro. What's your favorites?
So my favorite combo, Toxics.
Okay,
Um,
Nice.
that's one of the combos that just caught my eye at the beginning, and it's one of those things like, all right, I have to make those. Now
With
working
Sable.
towards, yeah, now working towards the acid rain. Correct. Yeah,
Nice.
yeah,
now
and
that's cool,
maybe,
man. Yeah,
yeah, and then again, like you mentioned, Swiss chocolate, maybe and then working that Swiss chocolate as well into there.
Yeah.
yeah.
Toxic Swiss.
I just did some photography up at Galewood's house.
Mhm.
I'm writing that book. I know a lot of people in the hog nose snake community have known about it. I'm an open book when it comes to that, literally. But excuse me, I was just up at Jeff Galewood's house, and I got to see some of those toxic Swiss chocolate that he hatched this last year.
Mhm.
He had stated that that was the animal he was proudest of when I spoke to him this last year that he
Yeah.
hatched, and it was an amazing animal to see in person for sure.
No, I can imagine. And that's one of those things that I think again, pictures are so deceiving sometimes on what you see. So I think the seeing in person is probably, one of those things, one of those animals you need to see in person. Um,
Agreed. A lot of these morphs are a lot of things you need to see in person because these cameras these days, as
mhm.
much as technology's advanced, still don't understand why we can't get the actual colors to pop up on your phone. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
Reds, purples, blues, anything in that color range to green is a struggle to pick up and to market your stuff. I mean, you almost have to mess with the colors just to get the person's perception to be able to see what you're actually got in your hand.
Hmm.
Because taking it with your phone, reds look brown, purples look brown.
Yellows look brown. I mean, lemon ghost is probably one of the hardest animals to actually photograph.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
because of and lavender. Both of those. It's
Does
just
John supply your? Oh, jeez. Nope, I
Um,
supply all those myself.
there is there is an actual question underneath the joke and stuff of that.
What does it say?
You know,
Ghost side.
with,
It's neat how different their processes are, so their combined experience is also very diverse. Yeah, very
you know,
diverse.
and that's one thing with you guys again having different collections, having different point of views and stuff of that. Is there one thing that it took a while for you guys to come in agreement with, either husbandry wise or breeding, future breeding projects and stuff like that?
I don't really think so.
No.
We focus on good brumation. That's something we focus on photo period. I know Mitch tries some things now. Listen, guys, like I've said this before, I've had a lot of success with Fathom Hogs and what we've done. If I were to move down here with you, Alvaro, or down here with Mitch, it would be a huge learning curve. I was talking about this today with him.
Yep.
Mhm.
It is completely different breeding snakes down here. it makes it easy on me doing it up in Ohio because I have such a dramatic change in weather every year. So that I hats off to you guys for being so successful down here in South Florida, because it is a completely different climate. You know, Western hognose snakes are not meant to live in a tropical climate, and you guys are successful. So whatever you're doing is good. I would say that, and just we focus on diversity. I mean, that's one of the things that, you know, we coined ourselves on from an early start, is like, we need to be able to offer unrelated bloodlines. You know, I currently am able to offer 4 different bloodlines myself for projects, you know, completely unrelated projects or bloodlines going into projects. They might not, you know, each one might not be as powerful. I can't offer you like, you know,
4 of the same thing.
4 of the same thing. Like we'll use an example of a sable head albino. I can't offer you 4 sable head albino different ones, but I may be able to offer you an albino het sable from a different line that can be 4 different completely diverse bloodlines. And with Mitch working with what he's doing, it can go even farther than that. So I think that's important, and it's given us an opportunity to be able to find things in lines that we don't like, whether it be cleft lips, whether it's kinking, or you know, with some of the early sable stuff. I know some people are starting to talk about it now, and some people are saying, you know, it's not real or whatnot. We worked with some of the original sable lines, and there is like a dwarfism that is associated with some of the first original sable animals. I still have some in my collection from original Montana locale animals, and it just, you know, being able to get those out and breed them out of those lines when we identify them is just been a huge asset for us.
Yeah, we kind of pass stuff back and forth between each other, whether it's breeding related, organization related, whether, like, you know, a few years ago we started key tagging everything and getting things organized, dialed in. So like, we don't really push each other to go one way or another. We kind of, like Jon said in the beginning, you know, we kind of focus on what's the benefit for the business. And hey, I'm doing this, it's working out for me, maybe you should try it too. And we kind of just push back on each other as far as ideas, and as far as, like, you know, organization or ways to keep track of things easier, whether it's, you know, husbandry records or breeding records, or just, I mean, Jon's helped me get super organized. Like, I used to have everything memorized, like straight up. He walked into my building one time, he goes, dude, you know what's in every single drawer in here? And I said, yeah. I said, pull one open, pick one. And I said, I'm autistic, dude. I've got this shit memorized.
He's like Rain Man.
Yeah, he goes, he brought up a good point though. He goes, bro, what if you die tomorrow and I have to liquidate your collection for your wife to get your family some money? And I'm like, yeah, I guess you're selling them all as normal. But, you know, hindsight, you know, now I have everything key tagged, I have everything organized, and it does help me. I don't have to use my brain as much to memorize everything. And, you know, but I used to do it, you know, 4 or 5 years ago before we started the key tag stuff. Then we started the glove thing. And that's kind of a great staple we started in the whole hobby of the hognose, because at first we were getting some pushback from people who were like, hey, what's up with the gloves? And you're like, biosecurity? Oh, I thought that snake might be sick or something. You're like, no. This is what we do. This is a standard that we started. And dude, I don't see a picture online now, very rarely, where somebody's not wearing gloves holding their snake. So like, there's several things that we've put in place, not just in our own personal collections, but out there into the hobby to help everybody with biosecurity, because some people might not be thinking about that. They might not even register on their radar. So,
and always doing CI, you know, continuous improvement from an operational standpoint.
Yeah.
Always figuring out how not only you can, not just shortcuts, you know, it's always good to find a way to use your time wisely, but what's best for the animals? Yeah. What's best for the animals? You know, one of my things that I implemented, it's been a decade ago was dishwashers.
Oh yeah.
You know, and I've pushed a lot of that along. You know, I don't think you're not using them yet, Alvaro.
No.
I know we've talked about it before, but Mitch uses them. I'm telling you what, like, I don't know what I would have to do if I had to clean 1,000 tubs, you know, a week, you know, by hand. My back would still be hurting. So just being able to utilize those and know that that standard is held high, that we are cleaning and sanitizing, not just cleaning a tub. You know, that's been powerful for our business. You know, and it's given a lot of people a lot of trust in us as well, knowing that we do keep those high standards to be able to push this hobby forward.
Yeah.
So,
and like you said, you know, the dishwasher thing, it's not just sanitation in that specific, you know, tub, but it also cuts down time so you can concentrate on other processes in your facilities, right? Especially the size that you guys have grown to, where I could just imagine, you know, sitting there and cleaning tubs for, you know, let's say 300-400 babies weekly, you know, plus
I couldn't imagine it.
yeah, plus adults and
Honest.
breeders and grow ups, all that stuff. That it's a lot of work. You know, and when I, you know, definitely move down to that level where you guys are, we get closer, dishwasher is definitely going to be a must, because it's just time consuming to be able to do that hand by hand.
oh yeah, 100%. Not only, you know, from, you know, the aspect of, you know, the animals, but, you know, you have a beautiful family, Alvaro. It gives us chances to be able to sit down and relax and be able to, you know, ask our daughters how jujitsu class was, ask, you know, how the wife's doing, you know, so they don't try to kill us because we're always in the snake room or the snake building, you know. So it gives us opportunities to be human beings and to you know, live our lives the way that we want to live them. So
yeah, you know, and that's a big, I think a big topic that we can talk about, time management with our reptile collection, and then life, you know, our family life, our personal social life and stuff like that, because this can be, like you said, like, you know, Mitch being Rain Man with everything, stuff like that. This can be very consuming, and and you know, I think if we're doing it at the level you guys are doing it, and you have people coming up, it can consume you very easily. You know,
Oh, 100%.
you know, I have that. You know, my snake room is in my house, and if in the morning, if I walk by that door, I'm popping in real quick. At
You
least,
gotta
you
get
know?
in there.
You know,
Gotta check on things.
yeah. Even if it's for 5 minutes, just to take a look, maybe open a couple tubs, and then get back to, you know, the morning hustle and bustle with the family and stuff like that.
yeah, you know, because it means different things for everyone. You know, my wife, you know, when we first met each other, she, you know, wanted the pretty yellow snake, so I got her a Burmese python, but she lost interest. She wanted to get into reptiles because I was into reptiles, and it's just not, you know, for everyone. So for people like me, Mitch, you know, yourself, sometimes the reptile building can be the safe place, you know, for when we're having a tough day, that we can go that we can go you know, decompress and just, you know, forget about the busyness of the world around us. But it's not the same for everyone, and so we need to be able to make sure that, you know, we can be there for our families as well. So yeah.
You know, and managing that with the size of your guys' collection, it's how do you figure out when it's enough amount of animals that you have?
When you run out of family time.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's all perspective, I guess.
Yeah.
You know, it's what is your goal?
Yeah.
You know, it could be different for me. It could be different for Mitch. It could be different for you. You know, I don't look to produce, you know, 2,000 animals a year or anything like that. You know, it's not something that I ever want to do. Could I get there? I could get there, you know, in probably 8 months' time. I could be producing tens of thousands of animals. I don't want to do that. You know, it's something that I'm satisfied with. I just want to be happy and do what I like, being able to come down here, hang out with Mitch. You know, last night I went out and, you know, jumped around on some sand roads down here in South Florida. You know, that's what makes me happy. You know, it's not going out to the bars or doing anything like that. And that's where I keep my collection, is where it gives me still opportunity to get out there and being able to manage that as well. You know, I have an employee, AJ, you know, that helps manage the collection with me. And, you know, so what does that mean? You know, if I get much bigger, I'm going to probably have to add employees. Would that be good? That'd be great. But, you know, then it takes away from, you know, me being out there as well, you know, and really enjoying the animals. And that's what I ultimately got back. You know, that's why I keep the animals, you know, is because I legitimately enjoy them. It's not about money. You know, I wish it, you know, I've been very successful in this, and it's been great. It's these snakes and reptiles have given me opportunities I never knew I'd be able to have, you know, in this lifetime. But it's humbled me, because ultimately at the end of the day, I don't really care how much money they're worth or anything. I just absolutely love keeping these animals. So.
Yeah. You know, recently I was asked on a podcast earlier this year, what keeps me doing this and what inspires me. And the one word that came to my mind was happiness, you know, that these animals give you. And that could be a fine line too. Like you said, if you become like a slave to this, and it's, you know, from the moment you wake up to the moment you have to go to sleep, if you can get to sleep, with either cleaning tubs, feeding, and all that stuff, it can get very daunting real fast. So I think that's
very.
you know, finding that balance is important, and figuring out your own, right? If you're a single guy, you know, no other extracurriculars, hey, spend 24 hours in your reptile room, right? So it all
100%.
depends.
Yeah.
With that, you know, if you have family, if you have other hobbies, other stuff that you want to get done, then you need to find yourself a limit. And I think too, with that, what we're seeing now and recently, where people are selling collections, you know, we've seen it in the ball python pretty often in the last 2 years, and now we're seeing it started creeping into the hognose world. And I think a lot of people bit more than they can chew, you know, 3-4 years ago.
100%.
And where do you guys see these evolve into? What is your take on that?
I would say, you know, what you see now is, in my opinion, is we've had a lot of people join in the last 4 years, since COVID, and I think a lot of people had a misconception that they're going to be breeding and making thousands of dollars, and I think a lot of it came down to dollar points. And when they jumped in and realized, oh, this isn't, you know, something that I'm going to be like 100% at first. Like, some people have beginner's luck and they do well breeding off rip, but I mean, like I said earlier, it took me 3 years to get it right. I mean, my first 2 years all slugs. So like, that can be a real devastation to somebody who's just spent 10, 15, 20 grand buying and building a collection. And then all of a sudden they're like, I'm getting slugs. I got one animal to give me good eggs.
Something dies.
And something dies,
Yeah.
gets egg bound. Things are not accounting for. And then it's very discouraging for them, and they sell collections. They get out because, you know, in their mind, they're like, oh, this is easy. You know, all I got to do is put this snake with this snake, and I'm going to make a bunch of $3,000 snakes, and they're all going to sell. Well, you know, John and I try to teach more than just the snake basics, and more than just the business aspect. We try to teach people marketing. We try to teach people branding. We try to teach people. We give away the information freely, like completely freely, so that people can emulate and do what we're doing. But I think there is a point where some individuals get discouraged, and I honestly think that's what's happening right now. Obviously, the economy's not the best, so you know, prices are down. Expectations are down because, you know, they were expecting to get this for this morph, and now the prices have come down a bit. But I've solely believed that a lot of this is merely, one, people's expectations, and not fully understanding when they hop in. And then two, the economy did its part too. I foresee the economy coming back. I see the price points going back up a little bit, not all the way back to what they were, but the demand will meet supply again here soon. But I think it's solely based off of the economy and just some eager individuals that thought one direction.
Yeah, to piggyback off what Mitch said, I think, a lot of people, like exactly what he said, focuses on the microeconomics instead of the macroeconomics of it, to be able to, just like he said, I'm going to breed 2 snakes and make $50,000 a year. It's just not realistic, and you got to look at everything across the board. To go more on what you were asked, the question of what our perspective, I think we're seeing typical, market maturing here in the hognose market and from a micro level. But we're also seeing this as well from, if you look at the reptile community as a whole, it's all following about the same curve. So I'm not trying to sound like too much of an asshole here, but it's times like this that weed out the people that aren't here for the right reasons.
100%.
So, it's something that, people just focus on the money. You got to kind of scratch your head at that point in time and be like, hey, what is their husbandry and animals like if that's the only thing that they're worried about? What other corners are they cutting? So, that's my raw take on it. But I do see, just like Mitch said, as this all comes in curves, and we may be at the bottom of a curve now, but it will mature. It will go back up, and it's just like other things. I mean, this last year, one of the hottest species that was out there was corn snakes. One of the top sellers across the world. One of the things that was coming back in all markets across the world. And that hadn't happened for the last decade. And all of a sudden, there it was again. Everyone wanted corn snakes. So, it happens in all markets, and we'll see this rebound, I think, with Western hognose snakes coming sooner than we honestly are prepared for, and we won't be able to keep up once again. So I know I was already anticipating going into the fall, like, all right, I'm very planned. So I'm thinking about what snakes am I going to breed and stuff like that. And I was like, all right, I'm going to breed, the typical amount. I'm not going to go above. Well, I mean, I had so many people buying snakes off me that I'm at a deficit essentially for where I'm at currently. So I'm already seeing the curve coming back up. So it's been amazing so far.
Yeah. And I'm gonna ask you a question because do you think everybody should be breeders?
No,
Right.
I don't think so. I don't think everyone should be breeders, and I don't think a lot of people, like I said before, it's times like this that, weeds the people out that, aren't there for the right reasons. As a breeder, you need to take responsibility for everything that you bring into this world. And, I take pride in everything, man, whether it's the normal that comes out of the clutch or it's the, super conda Arctic storm cloud. I treat them all the same. And, I love every life. It's precious what we do.
Mm-hmm.
When you go to your egg box, or even if let's rewind, you hatch that animal and, you raise it to adulthood. You raise it to be able to watch it lay its first eggs. And, there's something very special and powerful watching those first little noses poke out of the eggs from the animals that you produced. And you don't just throw that away.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people think that. I hear a lot of times, people come to me all the time and they're like, hey, you got any ready to breed females and stuff? And I'm like, holy smokes, dude. Like it kind of, yeah. Do we move stuff like that? We do, sometimes, but I have a hard time with that because I have, animals that are very special to me that I've, bred and raised myself. I've sold their siblings to other people to, follow their dreams and projects, but I've kept these animals, and they've done wonderful things for me. And it's kind of hard for me to put a dollar value on that,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and so it sucks sometimes because I have like a reptile building full of pets, you know, when I'm trying to be a commercialized, you know, when I'm trying to run a business and have a commercial operation going, but you know, that's what it gets to. So, you know, to go backwards, you know, no, there isn't, you know, everyone doesn't have to be breeders. And, you know, there's been many instances where people have come to me, spend great amounts of money with me and put a lot of trust in me just for pets.
Yes.
And I think that's amazing. You know, I think I've talked with you about it, Alvaro. I had, you know, a couple out of California, maybe 5 years ago, that bought a pair of Arctic sunbursts off me, paid a lot of money 5 years ago for Arctic sunbursts, a pair of them. And I was excited to hear what their breeding plans were. And they said, breeding plans? We just thought they were pretty. We're never going to put these together. So, you know, I think there's a place for everyone for that. So,
yeah. No, and I think realistically, the pet keeper is the bigger percentage of the reptile community, right? The breeders is such a small micro community, you know, level where we sometimes maybe concentrate too much on the breeder aspect and don't think about, you know, the keeper and the pets and stuff like that. And then everybody, like you said, wants to rush to be able to breed, to try to make those, you know, that money and try to, you know, buy the next project up and stuff like that. I think at that moment, people need to step back and really think, what am I going to do in 5 years, right? With this, am I going to be able to continue feeding this collection? Am I going to be able to maintain it and be happy if I don't produce one animal, or if I can't sell one animal that I've produced, right?
nah, 100%.
Yeah, I almost wish it would go back to like 8 years ago, because like before the real business aspect of this came into place, and we were more of a community. When you hopped on Facebook and you shared some new animal you made, there was more camaraderie. There was more community togetherness. And like, I feel like the business aspect of it, and this would be like the only negative that I've foreseen from it, because we've done very well. And we've, like Jon said, we've been able to build a future out of this as a full-time job and stuff. But it separated the community. As soon as money was being made and people were like, holy shit, you know, some of these morphs are going for a lot of money and blah, blah, blah. Like, dude, John Paul and I, first reptile show, Daytona 2015 or 14.
Yeah.
We made like $700 each when we were like pigs and shit. We're like, dude, high fiving, like, we did it. We fucking did it. We, you know, and it did. And not that every show, you know, we do pretty decent, but, you know, back then we weren't making, you know, thousands of dollars at shows. We weren't doing any of that. And we were like just pigs and shit, dude. It was like I said, and even in the online community was more camaraderie. People were, yeah, bro, you know, that's awesome, man. That's a gorgeous animal. And everybody was patty caking each other along, everybody. And then, like I said, like 7-8 years ago, once people started, you know, making money and stuff, and like segregated everybody into like groups.
Mm-hmm.
And it kind of sucks.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'd like to see the community come back together and people be genuinely happy for each other, instead of like, oh, look at this asshole, he just fucking made what I'm trying to make. And it's like,
Mm-hmm.
come on, bro. Like, we're all doing the same thing. Like, yeah, some of us are further along than others, but who cares?
Who cares? That's, you know, I have a lot of people that come to me and say that, like, hey, so-and-so made this animal, you know, I know you're working on that project. Does that really piss you off? And I'm like, I don't care. I'm like, that's amazing, man. You know, like I really don't care.
Yeah.
You know, it's one of the things that I'm in my own lane, and I'm not trying to sound like an asshole there. I don't care because I'm happy for them.
Yeah.
You know, they're able to show me what I at least am going to try and make.
I love watching our customers hatch badass.
Oh,
shit.
I love watching our customers hatch stuff.
Especially if they like beat us to the punch, like Scott Russell's one of them.
Yeah.
One of them.
You know, when he hatched those
Sable lavenders.
years. You know what I mean? You know,
The Arctic one and the super Arctic one.
Yeah, he bought a group of animals from me. Shoot, it's been, I can't even remember how many years ago. Rain Man might be able to tell you, but you know what, he hit the odds like no one I've ever seen before.
I think, you know, I had him on the podcast. I think there were POTS head animals or something like that, right? Like,
yeah,
it was crazy that
they were only 25% POS het for each gene as well, and all the stars aligned for all of those to be 100% het, and for him to have pairs of them.
Yeah.
So it was. You know, that's why I tell people, they're like, are you sure it's POS at this and that? I'm like, hey, go talk to Scott Russell. If I say it's POS at something, it is. You know, so yeah, it's something I love seeing that. I love seeing others succeed.
Yeah.
You know, so it's what keeps me going. So.
That's kind of what we push in our business anyways, because if everybody else is successful, we're successful. So that's kind of our motto. Like, you know, we'll help make you successful so that you can boast, brag, cheer, and you know what? It's going to come trickle our way as well, because they're going to be like, well, where'd you get those animals from? Well, we got them from Fathom Hogs.
Or where'd you get the suggestion from?
Or the suggestion.
Or who helped you with that? Hey, these guys helped me over here, you know.
Yeah.
I've told people, you know this, Alvaro, and there's probably people that's reached out to you or whatnot. I don't care if you bought something from me. You can ask a question. I'm going to answer you.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it may take me a little bit of time or whatnot, because I'm not, you know, I am not the social media guy. You know, it's just not my thing. But you know, I love talking about snakes. You know, that's just what it is. So
yeah. And like you said, like, you know, when Mitch has shared some of the, you know, great stuff that he hit last year and stuff like that, like, he just hearing the happiness in his voice makes me happy, you know, and seeing the
I get geeked out.
Yeah. Seeing the animal and stuff like that. It's like through pictures and stuff. It's one of those moments like he won. I won too, because it's a development in the hognose community, right? Like
100%.
If somebody's pushing it forward, at some point we're all winning, because that project is being pushed forward. And it's it's cool to see new things pop up as well.
Agreed.
Oh yeah, I'm waiting for a couple new color mutations to come out. There's some things that, you know, people are working with, and you know, whether it's a dominant or, you know, recessive or an incomplete dominant trait, you know, there's a few of them out there, and it just brings so much more excitement to the table. You know, when we can do that, and then watch each other succeed, and go into see new animals being brought into the world. So yeah.
And talking about that, you know, there's a handful of stuff floating around, right? That especially in Asia and in Europe and stuff like that, and within some people's collections here in the US as well. Is there any one project that's out of your collection that you really have seen is like, okay, this has got to be something, you know?
What'd you see?
Symphonies. Yeah, I like the symphonies that Jeff's got up there. There's a lot of variation between them. You know, he showed me the original symphony animals that, you know, he's made and things like that, or the patriarch to the symphony project. I think there's a lot of variation there. I think there's still things that we need to understand and learn about the gene itself. I think that's amazing. The Antarctic gene.
That's a cool one.
I hate the name Antarctic just because it's so close to Arctic. But I think it brings a lot of interesting, complex animals that can come to the market. Another gene that we don't fully understand. You know, I really do feel like it possibly could be allelic with Arctic already.
And there's some alleged scaleless out there.
Yeah, out of
we're waiting to hear.
Yeah, out of, well, I can say the country, Italy. There's some possible scaleless, and it's not the people that it's not the people that immediately think about when you think about Italy. It's not them guys.
Okay.
So there is a possible scaleless gene out there. So it'd be interesting to see some of that. And they are in other collections across the world as well. But
yeah,
it'd be cool to see some stuff like that. I don't know if it would be positive for the species though. You know, there's still, that's still out, but it's ball pythons. scaleless. What that might have been in the first scaleless snake, correct? Ball pythons. Well, I mean, there was a. Was it? Maybe it was. Well, Texas rat snakes.
Yeah.
So Texas rats, the LA Fae species, but there was a eastern hognose snake that Glades Herp got. I want to say it's been upwards of probably 20 years ago. It was a scaleless eastern hognose snake, but that snake died. But who knows? Who knows how they'll work? Because I know with ball pythons that a lot of those guys with that micro scale and scaleless stuff, they don't thrive. Yeah. So hognose snakes, I often wonder how they even survive in the wild with as derpy as they are. So it's hard to say what a scaleless hognose snake, how it would act. So we'll see. We'll see.
Especially with all the scalation stuff that they got going on on their heads and their face that makes them the hognose, right? Yeah, I wonder how would they develop over the years? Any issues that will come up after it.
Yeah, imagine like a soft rostral scale. What could that could be almost a detriment to the animal. So yeah, agree.
We'll see. I think there's still tons of morphs that are just under the radar that people might just be overlooking. Like they might be producing, there might be markers, but they're just their knowledge and genetics and the way things move forward, they might not have. But I mean, if you look at corn snakes or ball pythons and you see the amount of different recessives, incomplete dominance, all these different traits, polygenic traits and such, there has to be more. So I'm looking forward to the future. Piebalds, I would like to see some true piebalds.
True piebald hog.
Yeah, I think that's in the top list of everybody. Like some real true piebalds.
That'd be dope. Yeah.
That would change it.
I have no doubt in my mind within the next 10 years we will see all of this unfold. Yeah. And
you know why you say 10 years, but that's not that far.
No.
You guys,
we just did it.
You guys have been talking about like, okay, 2014, you guys got together. It's 2005. Already.
Yeah.
It's you guys are going on 11 years of working together and all that stuff. So I'm pretty sure you guys look back at that and it's like, damn, that went by so fast.
Oh shoot! Some of the stuff that we've made, even this past year, I'm like, dude, you remember when we started this project? When we were like, hey, look, we've got a lavender and we've got a sable. Let's mix them together, and then let's mix Arctic in there. Let's mix Conda in there. I mean, and that's just a small segment of it. We've done things with Sunset. I mean, we've worked that PPA gene for. Oh, dude, we've worked it. I'm not sure I know too many more people that have had the PPA gene, and we've diversified it as much as we have.
Oh yeah, so, I took that stigma around that gene back in 2013. I bought the project from Johnny Black, and then I bought some Arctic head albinos from Galewood because I was like, I'm running this, dude.
Everyone was saying it's terrible, it's a bad idea, and we've worked it.
Yeah, worked it, and we don't have any neurological issues or anything of the sort with any of our PPA stuff. We worked it into the Sable lines and made the Sunsets, the Sunset Condas, Sunset Super Condas. We're working on the Arctic and Super Arctic stuff right now. So
going beyond that, what my plan this year with the Sunset stuff is, mixing more genes into all that stuff. Storm clouds. I'm going to be mixing storm clouds into all that stuff this year.
Permafrost. We're doing the permafrost.
I mean, Sunset. I tell people all the time. I know I've said it to you, Alvaro. Always think 4 years ahead. Whatever you're doing today, think about what this decision I make today, how that's going to impact me 4 years from now. So that's, don't think like, all right, I need to make, I've got double het sunbursts. I need to make sure I make, a sunburst or whatnot. Think about what that sunburst is going to make so you can plug it to that next project to move it forward.
Mm-hmm.
So don't think small, think big.
Yeah. Sometimes you got to sacrifice some visuals and stuff like that to make the future, right?
Or even the hate, man. You got to just go through it because, dude, in 2014, 2015, it was like taboo. People were like, when they reach out, they're like, do these have neurological issues at all? Are you seeing any of the spiraling and any stargazing? That's what it was, stargazing.
Yep.
And I'm like, no, not at all. Well, I heard this. I heard
so
that.
and so said this. Yeah.
So, but my goal was initially buy good PPA lines that had already been worked on, which I did, and then further outcross them to other well-known breeders' stuff. I ended up sending my PPA content to Dan Ebby in 2014, and we made the hets for the sunsets, and him and John and I, we split up the hets and then off to the races, you know. And I unfortunately hit all 3 combos.
Odds gods over here. Rain Man. Yeah.
And they didn't hit one. Neither one of them did. Until like 2 years later. And but I mean, I took the time. I did the work, and
then we reverse engineered it from there.
And then we
got to the finish line, and we didn't say, "Hey, we're going to take these sunsets and breed them together to make more sunsets." We said, "Hey, what are we going to do with this gene now?
Yeah,
we're going to take this sunset. We're going to reverse engineer it. We're going to throw it into Xanthic. We're going to throw it into Storm Cloud. Xanthic and Sable to make that. That's what we're always thinking." So.
Yeah. And like 10 years ago, I wasn't thinking about like, oh, bro, I'm going to make so much money off this. I'm like, dude, these are going to be some badass looking fucking animals. And that was solely the goal. And now here we are, 2025. I can't hold on to a sunset animal. I can't hold on to a PPA animal, just even a regular PPA. I cannot. Yeah. The popularity's there. The trust is there from the people. I hardly ever hear anybody ask me any of those questions that I used to hear, back 10 years ago about the gene. And I think we've done a great job in outcrossing it and stabilizing it and now combining it with other genes to make even cooler stuff, because it's gorgeous all on its own. On its own.
Yeah, it's the PPA is definitely, people say, oh, you have albino, what do you need PPA for? But they're different. They're
way different. Yeah,
they're an albino complex both, but the PPA has that pastel color, that vibrance. With that albino doesn't, right? The albino is just straight, either yellow or red. Where PPA, you get that creamish color. It's very unique, and like what you guys been doing, mixing them into the Sable, and now into the Storm Cloud stuff, is going to develop more colors for sure.
Oh yeah, dude, and we've also worked a lot of purple line animals into extreme red animals into our PPA lines as well, because also in the beginning PPAs used to like snow out, like as they grew they almost look like a pink snow. Well, not anymore. Not anymore. They're vivid. They hold the color saturation with the purple and the red line stuff, and these things look neat. They look blue, pink, red, and like a whole different color spectrum. In the next 2 years, we should have a insane variety of sunsets, opals. Opals is the triple visual electric Sable. John made one a couple of years ago, but we should have a vast variety of some awesome PPA combos here to come.
And with the PPA line, and you talked about the scares that there were earlier with the spiral, the stargaze and stuff like that. What's your recommendations on breeding? Because I still hear it's breed visual to hets or hets to hets. Where are you guys at with that line on those types of breedings?
So as far as the PPA stuff, I still do not do visual to visual. I know it can be done. One generation, I've seen other people do it. I wouldn't preach it to people, because you might get one generation of nice animals, but then what is that one generation going to do if you tell those people that they could breed that to a PPA and it's already went in on itself once, like I said, I know it can be done, but I wouldn't feel good on my name and on Fathom Hogs, you know, with Jon, putting visual to visual stuff out to my customers for them to replicate what we're doing. I would feel more comfortable, and yeah, I won't get as many visuals. So what? I'll just do a couple pairings to get the amount of visuals that I want.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
It's the same thing with lavender.
Same thing with lavender.
There's just weak genes. You know, lavender and PPA are probably the two weakest recessive genes inside of the hobby currently. So they've been worked. They're strong now, you know, but it's still one of the things. I know there's a few people out there like, oh, you know, lavender to lavender does just fine. And I'm like, yeah, it can do just fine. You know, it is. But I've also heard a lot of horror stories, and I've seen some horror stories, you know, some animals that have trouble shedding, lots of kinks, cleft lips, short animals. You know,
short tails.
Short tails. Yeah, that's very predominant in the lavender gene. And that all goes back, you know, that both of those genes, you know, PPA and lavender, when they first were introduced to the hobby, they were highly inbred. You know, David Turcotte, when he first introduced lavender to the hobby, you know, his gene pool was tiny, you know, and he bred those animals, and then those babies came, and he bred those babies, and those came, and he bred babies. You know, I remember talking to him on the phone years ago, and, you know, one of the things that he said was, if I could count the amount of dead corals that I had in the egg, it was like 10 times the amount of live ones that he's hatched.
Yeah.
You know, and it was just from the weakness of the gene. And but it's all been worked on. You know, I would still, you know, like Mitch said, be a proponent of het to visual. Like I said before, though, a lot of times when I come into animals like that, I think that a lot of people have this idea in their mind that I have like this giant warehouse and stuff like that. I have a big building. I mean, it's a big, you know, it's about 30 by 25, 35 by 25, maybe, 2 snake rooms, baby room and adult room. But I don't like breed a lot of visual to visual animals and like pump out all these things. When I get to a final project, I reverse engineer it almost immediately. So I, you know, you're talking about going visual to visual, and I spoke earlier on, if I make a sunset and another sunset, I don't breed them together to make a ton of sunsets. I reverse engineer it to think forward 4 years ahead.
Breed it to an Arctic.
Breed it to an Arctic. Breed it to a lavender. Breed it to, you know, something else that, you know,
a frost
that will, the wonderful scenario. Something, think 4 years ahead, not next year.
Yeah.
You know, and that's how I do all my breedings. You know, there's been quite a few people that have come to me and been like, oh, I don't want to get this pairing off you this year. I'll wait till you make them next year. And I'm like, I might not make those next year because I made the ones that I need, you know, the 4 lines for myself to be able to have unrelated animals to make this project, see this project to fruition. But I may not make them again. You know, that may be it.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
No, and that's a good point, because thinking about the future line, even if you are able to produce, let's say, a full clutch, you know, 15 eggs, hatch full clutch of PPAs, or, you know, electrics, or whatever it is, any combo, what guarantee do you have that as they grow, they're going to stay healthy? As they produce animals, they're going to produce healthy animals.
Correct.
You know, I had Rare Genetics on a couple months ago, and I asked him a question about certain weaker genes, lavender, Lucy's, PPA, and he says, if at this point people have been outcrossing them and there's still problems with doing visual to visual, then the gene itself, it is a weaker gene. It's not that they're just inbred. The gene itself is probably weaker, and it's best if you still do visual, you know, het or het to hets.
Yeah, especially if you're going to sell the babies and you want to have a good name and you want to build a business and you want to, you know, do things the right way. Yeah. I mean, and you want a product that you can stand behind, that you're not going to have to replace a couple months later or whatever. I don't know what everybody else's policy, but, you know, we replace shit.
I stand behind everything that I do. There's been an extreme circumstance, and I'll never do this one again, but I replaced an animal that died after 2 years being in someone's collection, you know, and it was early on, and that person reached out to me and said, hey, you know, this animal died. What am I going to do? What are you going to do? And I was still, you know, early in my career, and I replaced the animal with the visual that he was trying to make with that animal that I sold him. So it was, you know, Arctic Cat albino, and I gave him a Sub-Zero to replace the animal. And this was years ago when, you know, an animal like that was extremely rare. And but you know, I have other things. You know, I make mistakes. I'm human. I just had someone reach out to me recently, and I sold them a snake as a male, and it was a very long-tailed female. And you know, they said, hey, what do you want to do? We keep closed collections, so it's something that, you know, you can't just be like, oh well, send me the snake back. What pathogen has that snake been exposed to? You know, something like that. And I'm not saying that I worry about, you know, this individual or anything. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying there's a standard.
Once,
yes, there's a standard.
It becomes, yeah.
It's a standard. So that's the standard. And they asked me, and I said, well, I'll just give you one for free, a male one. And they were kind of taken aback, and they're like, but I get to keep the female? And I'm like, yeah, it's my mistake. Like, I stand behind, like, I'm serious when I say that. I stand behind something like that, you know? So it's just something I'm passionate about, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. And with hognose, sometimes you have those in-betweeners that, you know, you sometimes think, you know, for 6-7 months, it's this sex, is this, and then, you know, a year passes by and you're like, what happened? You know?
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
We all make mistakes.
Yeah. It's part of it. You know, we can't be, you know, 100% just by visually checking and stuff like that. But the end of it is you stand behind what you're doing and you're willing to make it right. Right.
Yeah.
And even like you said, 2 years down the line is, who knows what happened with the animal? You know, pointing the finger, it doesn't ever get anywhere, really, right?
Correct.
So if you're able to, you know, you did the right thing on that situation, I think, especially as you're growing, you have extra animals. Hey, here's a replacement, here's a upgrade and stuff for that.
Yeah, and I had a lot of people. When that situation came into my lap, I referenced people both in the industry and not in the industry on what I should do. You know, like what would you do, kind of thing. And you know, I talked with a lot of people, and I had both spectrums. You know, I had people that were like, yeah, fuck that dude. You know, it's been 2 years, and I can understand that. You know, it's one of the things. Like, dude, there's so many variables that can happen in 2 years' time. And then it goes back, you know, once again, I wanted to go back, and I'm not saying save my name, but I wanted to be like, hey, that guy went above and beyond for me.
Yeah.
You know, you can't say that I didn't. So that's what my focus was at that point in time. Yeah. And I think it kind of goes back to, you know, some of the things I said at the beginning of this. I'm not worried about this for the money. You know, I do this because I love the animals. So that's just what it went back to. So.
Yeah. You know, and I want to talk a little bit about husbandry, especially being in two different spectrums, you guys. We did have a question earlier, humidity and differences between in Florida, where we're like 100% humidity, and then Ohio. How did you guys, you know, you had your collection here, and then Mitch, you have your collection. I mean, Mitch, you have your collection here, and Jon in Ohio. When you guys started talking about like temperatures, humidity, substrate and stuff like that, did you guys maybe work through it together, or it was like, okay, this is my system, I'm keeping my system, and then you figure out your system over there?
Well, so Jon, initially when Jon helped me in the beginning, because Jon, the reason how I was actually started to be able to produce was, you know, he put me on game. First, it was that packet of papers that I tell everybody about. John Paul put me on this information, and it's the Natural History of Western and Eastern Hognose by Dwight Platt. It's a PDF. You can find it on the internet and print it off. It's like 143 pages. Best information out there that you'll get on hognose. And once I read this packet of papers, I started to understand and alter my setup here. But John Paul has a set and forget kind of deal up in Ohio. Like if you're up high on the latitude,
especially if you're in a building like I am, it's not, you know, a house setting. So
Yeah.
I'll go through that one in there. Yeah.
So he can virtually run his animals off ambient temperature, and like he'll go in there during the spring and dump water on the floor to bring the humidity up and like simulate like a spring like breeding like weather. Where I have a building behind my house that I built that has AC, and granted that we're here in Florida, I have to run humidifiers. I know this sounds crazy, but I have to run humidifiers in that building because the AC pulls all the moisture out of that building, and it will cause problems with stuck sheds and such. So I run humidifiers almost about 16 hours a day, I would say, to keep the humidity between 50 and 70%. Where John Paul doesn't really have to worry about the humidity only during the breeding season to like incite breeding behavior, because the humidity levels have rise because, you know, the rains and springs here and that type of environment. But yeah, we definitely do things differently. John's not running humidifiers in his room like I have to. My animals will dry out.
Yeah, I only have to supplement humidity during 2 portions of the year, and that's right now. Like I just woke up my animals on Sunday to start bringing the temperature up, and then in the late fall when I'm getting them ready for brumation. So the heaters in my building are running a lot at that time, and it smokes the humidity inside the space. But besides that, they're getting all the humidity from the outside up there in Ohio. And we have some very humid summers, springs, and falls up there, to where I would say my average humidity is about 60 to 70% inside of those spaces. And you know, they get supplemental humidity spaces as well, especially the females during breeding season, just with their egg boxes. So yeah, that's kind of how I do it.
Yeah. And you know what, I think a lot of times we run into, or you know, we hear about people running into issues with hognose. They're eating well, then stop eating all of a sudden, or egg binding and stuff like that. And I think those 2 issues that we have there can be sometimes fixed with, you know, higher humidity, more hydration. You know, we sometimes people concentrate on too much on, I need to feed this animal. Well, how about you hydrate that animal? You know, soak them, get him water, get electrolytes into that, and then sometimes it'll be
bam, electrolytes. You said it, Alvaro. Yeah, micronutrients.
You know, that's feeding is secondary. Coming out of brumation, even doing, you know, like we do here, Mitch and, you know, in South Florida guys do here is, you know, we brumate in cocoa core. It's moist, but they don't have a, you know, actual water drinking spout. So like one of the best things is give them water every couple of days, checking it, because what I noticed this as well was those females especially just drink up the water real fast. Within 2 days, you know, a 12-ounce cup was gone from them drinking it, and it's not evaporating in this room. But yeah, I think that's one of the biggest things.
Hydration's always the first thing first. I'm like, even with like imports and other reptiles in the industry, they're not trying to feed these animals first. They hydrate them first. That's the first protocol. So yeah, and even with the hognose snakes, like in that Dwight Platt paper, when they put trackers in these hognose, and then they went and found them, and then they did humidity tests in the ground, and I believe the results are in that paper that I just mentioned. These animals aren't normally near a water source. They're in like some grasslands, like 6 inches to a couple feet in the dirt. And they were digging these things up. So these animals usually absorb a good percentage of their moisture from their environment. Yeah. And if you don't have a moist hide, or you don't show them where their water is, because they don't know where that water is. Some of them do, Not all of them, but I would say majority of them don't. You stick their head in there any time of the day and watch them lap up water, like you said, you know. So hydration's like hugely key with these animals, and that's also comes from the humidity in the air, you know, or the lack thereof. You know, some snakes won't eat when they're too dry. They will not. You have to hydrate them first, and then they'll eat. You know.
We know with that humidity we're talking about, it's sometimes I think it's a big misconception on the actual levels of humidity or lack of humidity hognose live in, right?
Right.
I think when I first started looking into hognose, everybody's like, oh, it's an arid species. It doesn't need more than 30% humidity and stuff like that. You know, and after
no way.
You know, after really digging into it and stuff like that, it's like, these animals are living in humid dirt, you know, sandy,
Oh yeah.
you know, black dirt and stuff like that, where they're getting 70, 80, percent humidity.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah, a lot of them, you know, in that plat paper, they were talking about them in Kansas, and they would encounter a lot of them when they were plowing the fields because they would be subterranean down there in the dirt, and that's when they encountered a lot of them. So yeah, that says a lot about the animals. You know, yes, you do encounter them on the surface quite a bit. My good friend Zach Loafman is doing a very important study for the species out in Iowa this year, and we're going to learn a lot from you know that study. But it's you know, it's incredible what these things go through and what they do. But yeah, definitely not an arid species. You know, when you said that, you know, first thing, you know, that came to my mind was like a Euromastix, and you know how they have to be hot, you know, dry. Yeah, and you know, yeah, you would kill these things so fast if you kept them like that. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's when when I get pet buyers, especially at a show, ask me, hey, what's the setup? You know, they talk about high temperatures. Do I put it on sand? I'm like, no, that's the worst thing you do. Put it on full sand, you know, and then just sitting there and talking to them how to properly set them up. With substrate and stuff like that in your collection, what do you guys prefer in substrate?
So what I prefer in a commercial setting is I use the aspen bedding, the aspen chips. So that's what I prefer. If I were to be keeping a pet hognose snake, I would say a sand and peat mix
100%.
would be the one of the best things to keep. With me, I'm a clean freak, so I'm always about flipping and making sure everything's sanitary. So the aspen works best for me. The animals themselves, I think, would love the sand and peat mix the best, just for burrowing and everything like that. So
I used to keep all my animals on sand and peat for like 4.5, 5 years, and my animals did, in my opinion, the best on sand and peat. I just recently switched back to sandy chips to keep a more sterile, clean environment, like John Paul is talking, because it was starting to get into my AC unit and cause me problems. And then I would come home and my building would be warmer than I would like it, and it was really like messing with my temperatures, and I kept having to blow out the AC unit and stuff like that. Because on a commercial level, that amount of sand and peat in one area, it moves through the air. And even when we were keeping it hydrated and stuff for the animals, I have my wife works with me, and I would have her mist down the stuff once a week. And we have lots of ventilation too, fans moving, so it would settle on things, and it was very tough to keep it clean, but the animals were happy. But recently I just switched it so that I don't have to replace AC units and other, like I have a humidifiers in there going, and I've also got an air purifier, and I'm constantly changing out filters because of the sand and peat. But like John Paul said, if I were to teach somebody, you know, in a pet setting, or they want to set it up in a tank for display, I would recommend sand and peat 100%. It's sterile. It's more beneficial to the animal because it holds a good moisture value. You could even do a bioactive and have isopods in there, and do that whole thing, and it's overall better for the animal like that.
And it just goes back to, there's two different types of keeping that we're talking about here. We're keeping, a breeder versus a hobbyist pet keeper.
Yeah.
And, on a commercial setting, we want to have that sterile environment where the animals are happy and healthy. But, we're micro focused on that aspect of it, to be as successful as far as production and health of the animals there. So, what do? You supplement with moist hide boxes and things like that in that setting instead of switching your substrate out. So that's something that I do, and supplementing with humidity. We could go on, there's probably like 50 different ways that you could keep hognose snakes and be successful. It's just what works for you, and watch your animals. I tell people that all the time, like, well, what's your animal doing? And they'll be like, oh, he's glued to the front. He doesn't like sitting on his heat spot. And I'm like, all right, well, maybe your heat spot's too hot then. And they're like, well, why would you think that? And I'm like, well, he's glued to the front of his cage, just trying to get cool. Yeah. They're like, well, I didn't think of that. And I'm like, yeah, just watch your animals, man. They're gonna tell you everything. So it's one of those things. Just watch your animals. They'll tell you a lot. If they're happy, they're going to be wandering, going into this spot, going into that spot, coming out and eating. Hey, man, you're doing everything right. Just keep it up.
Yeah. That's what I tell people. It's like, once you have humidity and temperatures dialed in, the rest is easy.
Oh yeah. They come lunging.
Yeah.
Watch your fingers. Yeah.
And that's another a misconception I hear at local shows, smaller shows and stuff like that. It's like the newcomer or somebody that maybe quickly looked into some reptiles. They're like, oh, I've had this at least once a show I've gotten, I wish I can keep a hognose. I was like, oh yeah, how come? Why do you say that? They're just finicky eaters. They don't eat well. And, I go into my spiel about, like, first of all, you need to get an established hognose from a reputable breeder, person, or somebody that's reselling a hognose hasn't passed 4 or 5 hands, if it's he's getting directly from the breeder and maintaining it and selling to you, okay. But I go, look at an animal, it's like, look at the size of the animals, ask when it was hatched and compare to other stuff you see and see if they're around the same size. If you see a 6-month-old hognose at 10 grams, that's a red flag there, right? It's not eating. First of all, it's probably not eating, or hopefully, it doesn't have any other underlying like ailments or anything else.
Right. No, 100%. Yeah. I preach that a lot to people. There's, a lot of people that you encounter at reptile shows, and making sure you, ask the questions to the person that you're getting the animal from, and, find out if they were the ones that bred it. And if they're not, why is that person selling it? It's, I'm not saying that people selling other people's animals is a bad thing. It's not, sometimes, it drives certain markets. If there's a deficiency in Montana, for hognose snakes, there could be a vendor there that reaches out to a reputable breeder and gets animals for people to supply there. But, just as a person that would be buying that animal, I would ask a lot of questions and do your research. And if those people say, I don't know where this animal came from, or I don't know the breeder, or I don't, that would be one of the red flags. Absolutely. Absolutely, that you're talking about. So,
yeah. So, we talk humidity, temperature wise. Jon, you don't run supplemental heat, correct?
I do. But it's very intermittent. So I only turn on supplemental heat for my adults after July. For the year. So it's after the breeding time and egg laying time for me, for the most part.
So you run ambience during the breeding season.
I run ambient during the breeding season, but I do for the babies. So the babies, I just with them turning on, I let them get up to temp in the room, for a few days, and then I'll ramp it up from 83 to 88 degrees at the heat panel, not at the tub. But I also run ambient inside the space, and it starts out at 6 a.m. So from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m., I have it at 78 degrees in the reptile room, and then it ramps up to by noon to 82 degrees, and then it ramps back down after that.
Yeah.
So that was that's how I run my rooms, and then with the supplemental heat. And I try to go back. You know, a lot of people say, well, why aren't you keeping them on a hot spot? You need your females to eat. You need them. Well, I'm doing all the stuff that they need to eat. And I tell people a lot of times with my breeders, you know, what do you think breeders, hognose snakes in the wild are doing? Are they waiting till June, July to breed? Or are they coming out of brumation and breeding so they can lay eggs, and then those babies have the best chance that they can at survival before they have to go into brumation? So a lot of these animals are breeding at probably 50 degrees, you know, 55 degrees, maybe even you know, colder than that, you know. And it's one of the things that I talk to people a lot about as far as brumation temperatures. For me, that works. I get them cold, you know, to really shut them down, because I watch animals at 50 degrees and they're still pretty active. You know, they are moving around. They're coming to see what's going on, and to get that real brumation where they really shut down, you know, I get them cold. This last year, I had one day where it got down to 28 inside of my snake rooms, and I mean, that's cold. That would scare the crap out of a lot of people. They'd be like, 28 degrees, you know, all the snakes are going to die. I didn't lose a single snake, you know, and I'm talking, I have, you know, probably 1,200 snakes in that space, and you know, not a single snake died. So it's something that they're very durable with, but that's kind of how I do in my room. So it ramps up. I like those Lux thermostats for the space, and I just use one of those radiant oil heaters. Looks like a radiator, you know, essentially, and then fans to move the air in the room, so I don't have any dead spots in the corners or anything like that. I like to move the air. So
yeah. And then Mitch, you're running heat, right, as well?
Yep. Yeah, I do things totally different than John. John, we open up that window real quick.
Yeah.
I use wine coolers. So I pre-stage my animals. I take them off heat and for a couple weeks, and then I bring them to ambient temperature, about 78 degrees, and then I put them in their little boxes, and I put them in the fridge at about 60, and I drop the temperature slowly. Then I go down to 45, because that's as low as the wine cooler will allow me. And like John Paul said, if you look in there and check on them, which I do every few days, they're moving around. They're shaking and moving. They don't get a full like brumation where they're like actually, you know, under a trance, you know, and just sitting there. But that's what I have to do. And it works. It definitely sets the ovulation on the females, and definitely builds sperm follicles on the males. So, but that's how I do things differently than John. He can allow his room to cool down. I have to put them in a fridge.
I think photio period is just as important.
Oh yeah, they're in complete black darkness. I do put a sheet over top of the wine coolers, and then when I bring them out, I keep my ambient temperatures about 77 to 80 degrees in the building, and I set hot spots low, so that I don't burn up any sperm follicles on my males and stuff. So I do use supplemental heat. And then I also have my light cycles. That's what John Paul was just mentioning is key to getting the process going. And I do 16 hour days.
Yep, same.
And it works good. It works real good.
Yep. Yeah, that light cycle thing for brumation and breeding is so important. And I think just for the daily, just feeding, all that stuff. If these animals have whatever experience, especially, you know, back to like people that are just starting with hognose, if they don't give them a consistency of light cycles, you're gonna throw the animal off on feeding, on breeding, on behavior, all that stuff, because it doesn't have a consistency. Like, is it spring? Is it summer? Is it winter? You know, today I got 3 hours of light. Then tomorrow I have 12. And just because of, you know, how you run your lights in your room or your
So
house.
check this out.
Mm-hmm.
Well, for the longest time, I didn't understand. I would say I've John Paul put me on this because it didn't make any sense to me. I would pull my animals out of brumation the same time him and Dan would pull their stuff out. Okay. I would pull mine out before them. Excuse me. Pull my animals out a month before them out of the fridge. Start pairing them, and this is before I set my light cycles to 16 hours. I let that run off the light in the windows. So I'm like, they just need the natural light coming through the windows, and that's all they really need to know what time of year it is. Well, I live here in Florida, like you, 12 on, 12 off, almost year round. Our longest days are in June, and they're only 14 and a half hours. That's it. And so for these animals as a species, 12 hours means winter. That means winter.
You would get eggs after us.
So they would get eggs before me, pull out after me. And it took me 4 to 6 months to get eggs from my animals after pulling them out of brumation and pairing them. Where these guys are pulling them out and they were getting eggs within 2. Dan was getting stuff as fast as 4 weeks. And he was getting stuff as fast as like 7 to 8 weeks. And I'm like, I don't even understand what's going on. And he's like, dude, it's your light cycles. And I'm like, I never thought about that. Once I switched to the 16 hours on, I can almost predict exactly when I'm going to get the eggs. It's within a couple of months, 2 to 3 months of pulling them out of brumation and pairing them. So now the light cycles, that matters. That's huge because
it's just as important, you know, as temperature. You know, these are reptiles. You know, reptiles do everything, and I think there's still a lot of things that we can learn. You know, I'd like, you know, you spoke earlier about keeping them outside, incorporating UVB into an enclosure. It's amazing how you see an animal react to UVB. You know, you can put UVA in there, just a regular heat lamp, and then you can do UVB, and you can watch that thing say screw that UVA and go straight to that UVB. Even though we can't see it with our eyes, they may be able to see it with theirs, or they feel it. And it's just very interesting. I've seen it a lot with the turtles that I'm keeping, versus keeping them inside and outside, and it's just incredible. I mean, you know, just the difference between the two.
Yeah. No, I mean, and you know, back to the partnership stuff, it's like if Mitch, if you wouldn't have had John to, you know, sit there and talk and, you know, compare your stuff, you probably maybe would have taken longer to figure out that light cycle, right? So it's another benefit of the partnership you guys have and be able
100%.
bounce ideas back together.
Oh yeah, especially this last year we learned a pretty good lesson with RO. RO water is not the best water.
It's not good water for your animals or, you know, anything like that. You know, it took me, I mean, it was something that I should have had an aha moment earlier. I didn't have the problems that Mitch had yet. But I was using RO water and spraying my animals to, you know, because I spray things, you know, you raise humidity and stuff. Well, I was having a shit ton of shedding issues with the animals that were getting sprayed with RO. Even though they were getting ready to shed, I'd hose them down with RO to make sure they were, you know, nice and, you know, wet so the shed would come off easy and everything like that. I was still having issues. Well, the RO was actually pulling micronutrients from the animal's skin itself and making this shed almost crispy because it has no minerals or nutrients in it. So it has to pull it from somewhere. So it was doing that. And as soon as I changed that to softened water and was spraying them, it corrected the issue. So it was incredible, you know, just knowing and learning that. You know, I learned something every year, you know, and that was one of them.
Yeah. You know, and that's another, you know, thing about watching your animals, learning them from them, and keeping an open mind that just because you can produce animals doesn't mean there's not something you could better, or maybe another issue that's going to come down the line, right? Yeah, the water. I have spring water that I get delivered to my house because you know, what you said, our water, it's clean. It's actually too clean, right?
Yeah, it's too clean.
It's too clean. Yeah, man. I think it's one of those things, like, you know, we talk about, you know, having kids and stuff like that. It's like kids are inside all the time, and when they go, inside, and they go outside, they get sick quicker because they're too clean. They haven't experienced the world and stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Go out there and lick them door handles. Go do some jujitsu. I think that's one of the best things that we can do. Like that's something that we have in common, Alvaro. You know, I picked that up, you know, a few months back, and we've talked about it quite a bit. And, it's something that I feel like everyone around me has been getting very sick, and I may get a little cold or something like that, but it's not to the extent. And I was like, man, I'm rolling around with germs all freaking day. You know, multiple times a week, 3, 4, 5 times a week, you know, and, you know, just out there doing that. And it makes it easier on my body. So it's just the same thing with these animals. You know, if you're giving them too clean of environment, too clean of water, you know, and stuff like that, and it can have some effects to them that you're not anticipating. Yeah. So, you know, another thing, like I said, people ask questions, you know. It's one of the things that I've learned, and it's something that a new keeper wouldn't even think to ask. Yeah, you know, but it is something that, you know, it was an aha moment this last year, and it didn't happen until late in this last year. I think I didn't figure that out until after Daytona, and you know, I was like, man, you know, and it makes a lot of sense too, because the humidity, you know, after Daytona, September, October came around, the temperature started dropping. The humidity in the air was getting smoked because the heaters were running more, and, you know, bam, you know, it was just a chain effect after that, to where I was seeing the shedding problems. And then, you know, I started doing my research, and I was like, dude, I've been fucking up, you know? This is how I need to fix it. So,
and the important part is figuring it out, right? Sitting there and really figuring it out. You know, because you probably got into worse issues down the line. You know, this year comes around, and either, you know, you have bad season, you have more egg binding, all that stuff is the trickle effect for sure.
100%.
You know, with the partnership breeding and stuff like that, what are you guys looking forward to in the next, you know, couple years of projects that you guys are breeding together?
What are you looking for?
Swiss chocolate stuff, you know. I'm excited for making a bunch of combos. I'm still, you know, I think Mitch is going to be making visuals here, maybe this year, next year. Swiss chocolate stuff. I'm just making hats for the next couple of years. I'm not, you know, really in a rush or anything, but I'm excited for those. I'm excited, you know, we've got other avenues inside the reptile community as well that we're exploring. You know, there's still, you know, the snake racks. We did almost introduce the alu racks to the U.S. market, but you know, it just wasn't perfect. It wasn't perfect for what I wanted to deliver to you guys. So, you know, I took a step back there. But we have some other things that we're doing, and you know, some supplies that we're going to be introducing to the market and things like that. And just building this, dude, it's all about having fun. You know, this is something that we're passionate about, and we want to deliver that to all you guys, you know, and just watch people succeed with things that we've learned over the years.
For sure.
I'm looking forward to the super permafrost.
yeah, there you go. Yeah,
there you go. That's a good one. That's a really good one. Yeah.
We got some cool combos that we're making projects for, like the pink pastel permafrost stuff. We'll be launching some nice project animals hopefully this year. Some sables and sable condas. It'll be triple het PPA frost. And some storm cloud oxide stuff. So
storm cloud lavenders.
Yeah, storm cloud lavenders.
Quite a few of those this year.
Yeah, and mercury sables. Right, that's the same thing, isn't it?
Mercury sables, storm cloud lavender. Yeah, we got Arctics and super Arctics of those coming, so that'll be fun to see. Nice. You know how that gene, especially super Arctic,
Mm-hmm.
how it affects all those different genes, and
Yeah.
it'll just be
The
neat.
super Arctic and Sable makes it crazy. So I could just imagine everything else on top. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's cool.
well, my goal is to make a true blue hognose snake.
Mm-hmm.
Kevin Rhodes has done some good stuff with some of that permafrost stuff that he's done over this last year. He made some amazing,
badass shit.
Yeah, but I would like to even take it a step further and make a real blue hognose snake. So
Yeah.
we'll see what we can do. Hey, we might fall flat on our face, and it might look terrible. And then we'll just have to go another direction.
It might be the lemon ghost storm cloud.
Yeah. Hey, absolutely. Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. But
lemon ghost permafrost.
Yeah.
Yeah, you gotta try it. Yeah, we'll figure it out.
Yeah.
We're gonna try it all.
And then
see if it sticks.
With partnerships and business stuff that if somebody's getting into breeding hognose this year, maybe taking the plunge and starting a business as well, what would be a few tips for them?
In a partnership?
Either partnership or just starting their business on their own.
Okay. Starting a business on their own, do your research. Make sure that you're comfortable in breeding snakes and not being able to sell them for a while. I think a lot of people jump into that. They're like, hey, I'm going to produce 200 hognose snakes, and then they're like, nobody's buying them. Well, what am I going to do? And then you're feeding them every week. The snakes get bigger. You have to upgrade caging. You have to anticipate all that stuff. So just having a vision there and understanding, what the cost is associated with starting a business and breeding reptiles. Now, as far as a partnership goes, respect. I talked about in the beginning. Open communication and respect. You're not always going to agree on something, but respect what the other person has to say.
Yeah.
I think that's very important. Mitch has been great with that. I'm sure he's wanted to choke me quite a few times, and I've wanted to choke him quite a few times. But it's something. At the end of the day, we can set all that aside. And this is one of my best friends right here, man. We'd probably do very serious things to someone if they stepped in between us, or if they want to do anything.
Might disappear.
Yeah. We know how you South Florida boys go. But,
the Everglades is right there.
Yeah, the Everglades is right there. But it's something that if you're going to go into business with somebody, you have to be able to have that communication.
Yeah.
That's what I've seen it happen so many times where that's it right there. That's what drives people apart. So
no, that's a big thing. Like laying all the cards up, on the table, exactly, what each person wants and needs from the partnership, all that stuff. I think the word unsaid is, just because you're thinking it doesn't mean the other person's thinking it. Like you said, communication.
Right.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would also say marketing too. If somebody wants to get involved, my first advice to people that want to get in, breed, do a little hobby business or even full-time business, you really got to do the branding and the marketing and put yourself out there. And I know a lot of people have a hard time with that, but you have to start somewhere, because you don't want to be breeding, like John Paul says, produce 200 snakes and then you're like, okay, now how am I going to move these? You want to establish yourself in the community first and foremost. Do your research on where you're going to get your stock from. Do your research on how you're going to keep them, how you're going to pay for them, how you're going to maintain them, and have a plan in place. But the marketing and putting yourself out there are the biggest things that I think a lot of people try to go around or do it later. Oh, I'm going to do that later. I need to figure out this breeding first.
Mm-hmm.
And okay, then you figure out the breeding, and then you got these babies, like John Paul said, and nobody knows who you are. Yeah. So, I would say marketing and branding yourself so that people know who you are, know what you're bringing to the table when you come to the table. And I think those are the massive keys for scaled success.
Yeah.
There we go.
You like what I did there?
Hey, so I'll give an example of that as well. Snake discovery.
Yes.
In the hognose community, they produce very few animals versus a lot of us other people. Their wait list is long. Their marketing is probably surpasses anyone else's in this hobby, and they excel in that space.
Yep.
So
I agree.
that's something right there that can help. I've had a lot of people reach out to me and be like, hey, I'm on the list, but I won't be able to get a hognose snake from them for like 3 years. So I'm ready for one now. So yeah.
And with Mitch's point, the community, I'm plug in. I just launched the Clover's Reptile Patreon. So if you guys want to go check out, you're watching, you want to, join a community that I'm starting to build, go to our Patreon. The link is in the description below. And the thing with that is building the community that everybody can respect each other and help each other out at the same time. And like you said, getting those little key points where you might be missing, and you can sit there and talk to people, myself, and other points of views as well. So we just started that out, and marketing again, right? Pushing yourself out there for the world, the reptile world, to see what you're working on. Even if you're not even producing eggs yet, at least people start following your journey on what projects you're working, what animals you're working with. And then when you get to
what you're raising up,
when you get to that point, they have animals, and they've already followed the whole journey. So they've been part of the process.
Correct.
Yeah.
They feel comfortable with you. They'll buy from you. And that's how it works. You can't just show up on the scene and say, I got these hog nose snakes, man. They're like, oh, who are you?
That's right. Yeah.
We've all been over here on Facebook and Instagram. We've never seen you before.
I hear that. And then one of my last questions for you guys: what's the most rewarding thing of running Fathom Hogs together?
Oh.
Having to be okay with your partner's decisions sometimes.
Yes.
And supporting them through it.
Yeah. There we go.
You might not agree. You just have to understand.
Yeah. Now, rewarding, the friend, honestly, probably just, I'm humbled by the amount of people that, hold us on this pedestal. I talk with him about it all the time. I'm just a guy that likes snakes, and
some loser.
Yeah, I'm just, and it's just amazing watching these people out here, really respect what you have to say, and it's humbling.
Yeah,
it really is.
Very.
So
yeah, I didn't realize either until you start hearing people. Oh, well, dude, you're so and so. I'm like, what? I'm nobody. I'm
just a regular guy, man.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah, but that being said, it's realistically is the amount of years as you guys have put into this, right? It's not like we're talking about 5 years ago you guys started. This is the amount of years that you guys put into it, and I think just that sticking with something that meant that long is commendable. We live in the world where people a year, 2 years, I mean, if lucky, a year, maybe like a couple months, if they don't see what they want, they're moved on to the next thing.
Yeah.
So
well, thank you. Hey, we're proud of what we've done, and we're proud of the people around us. So we appreciate it.
Oh, for sure, man. And we're gonna end it there. I really appreciate you guys coming on.
Yeah,
no
problem.
Having you guys
Thank
together in the same room was gonna be a great show. I see why this partnership works just from this interview. I've seen you in person, you guys hanging out. You can see that you guys' energy meshes well together, and it's really a friendship. I would say more than the partnership.
Oh, yeah.
Great.
Thank you guys. You know,
No
everybody,
problem.
make sure you guys subscribe to the channel, hit the like button, go follow Mitch, Fathom Hogs, and John, Shovel Nose Hogs.
Shovel Nose 82.
Shovel
Yeah,
Nose
Shovel
82.
Nose.
Their links are in the description below as well.
Yeah.
To the Instagram. Check their Morpho Markets out. And guys, we'll see you guys on the next one. And thank you for joining in tonight.